If you disappeared today, how much of the world would actually stop? We like to believe that our presence leaves some kind of mark. But what if the world simply carried on? Chrono Cross turns the question into an experiment, placing its protagonist in a reality where he died as a child. But what he finds there isn't the weight of his own absence, it's something else. In Chrono Cross, we follow Surge, who, after a series of events, is pulled into a dimensional distortion and taken to a parallel reality. In this other world, he's already dead. As he explores his village and talks to people who would have been his neighbors or friends, no one even recognizes him. Since his early death, life has moved on. Relationships were formed, people grew older, and the version of him that once existed there is now nothing more than a memory from the past. A lot happens after this beginning, and we'll come back to some of it. What becomes clear is that Chrono Cross isn't simply a story about alternate dimensions. The game also wants to show us a universe after our absence. If your self-esteem is doing well, you might occasionally think that the world needs you, that in the grand scheme of things, your presence may be small, but it matters. I don't condemn that thought. It can be a healthy one to carry around. In fact, the story doesn't destroy this idea. It broadens the perspective, showing us that the reality is larger than any of us. Some might take this in a nihilistic direction, an arc that we don't matter, but I can't convince myself of that. On the contrary, against all odds, simply existing and being part of all this is an enormous privilege, an open field of possibilities, given the sheer complexity of everything that becomes possible simply by being alive. Every day above ground is a good day, quoting either Pitbull or Ernest Hemingway, depending on who you're trying to impress. The other alternative is nothingness and non-existence. Then again, maybe there are a few others. When the game introduces us to the possibility of a world where you never lived, a restless mind soon starts speculating. If there is a world where I didn't exist, there could also be worlds where I did exist but made different choices. And we all have a few what ifs when we look back. What if I had accepted that job in another city? What if I have studied something else? The human mind allows itself certain luxuries. Faced with a routine full of present-day worries, commitments, bills, and goals, we think about what the future might hold. And as if that were not enough, we also think about pasts that never happened. Those lives were never lived, yet somehow they still manage to haunt us, ghosts of the self that never came to be. There was something intriguing about that. These shadows don't just follow us, they shape the person we are. Chrono Cross shows us some of this through Kid. Later, we learn that she's a clone of Shala, and that creates a duality. She shows us that the past never disappears completely. Kid carries on the legacy of the Princess of Zeal, sharing her DNA, her magical powers, and even carrying the royal pendants with her. And yet, this past, a past Kid herself never lived, doesn't remain intact. She's a different person from Shala, with different impulses and passions, writing a story of her own. The past cannot be recovered, but its echoes can still be heard. At other times, it's the future that can haunt us, and the game gives us a picture of that as well. One of the biggest criticisms of Chrono Cross is the complexity of its narrative. Many people feel that it borders on confusing, and indeed, this isn't an easy story to understand. It demands attention, another playthrough, and sometimes even a bit of research. The Dead Sea is part of that complexity. It's a temporal anomaly, a landscape containing a future ruined by levels, frozen and compressed into a space where part of the ocean should be. In the game's geography, this area is the Sea of Eden, where, not coincidentally, magnetic forces and the axis of time behave abnormally. But more simply, the Dead Sea is a cemetery, but not a cemetery filled with human graves. It's the cemetery of an entire future. Every decision in our past that could have been made differently creates a personal Dead Sea that each of us carries around. Abandoned projects, imagined futures, failed relationships. The Dead Sea isn't merely destroyed, it's finished, unable to change. A story that has already been told, with no chapters left to write. The ruins are not what make it frightening. Rebuilding is part of our journey. What's terrifying is that every possibility has already collapsed into certainty. The complete absence of hope. For me, for you, every unlived life is similarly sealed away in a different reality. Only the one in which we live and act is still happening. To remain trapped in the what-ifs is to visit your own Dead Sea and choose to stay there. Chrono Cross offers something different. There is an ongoing debate over whether Chrono Cross should really be considered a sequel to Chrono Trigger. Thinking about the arguments, my conclusion is that the debate has much more to do with what we mean by sequel in the first place. The connection between the two games exists and is clearly established. What I want you to focus on, however, is the difference between them, perhaps the most fundamental one. Chrono Trigger, in a way, represents a natural desire to go back and correct, redo, or save something in the past. And that's how its story develops and ultimately concludes. Chrono Cross, in its canonical ending, finishes by undoing all of this, unifying the realities that were created. The entire new chain of dimensional events stemming from the interventions of the first game is erased. It may sound like a conformist message, but above all, it is a prudent one. The butterfly effect, so often explored in stories about time travel, follows a fairly intuitive logic. You cannot change a single event and expect everything else to remain intact. Human history is built from links and connections whose full extent is virtually impossible to comprehend. Of course, preventing certain tragedies may seem unquestionably better to us, but it's impossible to predict everything that would follow, including how much worse things might become. Alternate realities can be a healthy exercise for the imagination. They invite us to reflect and improve the reality that matters, the one we are living in. the only one where the next decision hasn't been made yet. Imagine a growing tree. Its branches remind us that many paths are possible, but the branches are not where its growth truly comes from. It grows from the trunk, and the trunk moves in only one direction. The alternatives have the value. They teach us and help pave the paths we take. But there is one main path that keeps moving forward while the others come to an end. The past can teach us, and the future can inspire us. But the present is the only place where we can act. Chrono Cross let us walk through an alternative reality only to reveal a simple truth in the end. More important than answering what the world would be like without us is finding every day an answer to what can still happen while we are still here. If you could visit one unlived version of your life, which one would it be? Let me know. If you like this, please hit the like button. If you want more, check my other videos and please subscribe. There's new content every Wednesday. I'm Charles and I truly appreciate your time.